With the 7th annual Kombinatas festival fast approaching, we are sharing some highlights from the last year's main stage. This time we invite you to listen to Ihor Potarsky's talk called Climate-Humanitarian Crisis in the Russia-Ukraine War, Double Vulnerabilities and Gaps in Response.
Hi, my name is Igor, and I'm a sociology student, and I participated in this project as an assistant. So I will be presenting a research made by Nina Potarska and Andrei Bahinsky with Alameda institution. So yeah, as I participated more as a research assistant and interview transcriber, so my main goal with this presentation would be bit compress original work and underline some interesting points from I found during interview transcribation. So title is Climate-Humanitarian Crisis and the Destruction of Ukraine Agricultural Sector, Challenges and Recovery Prospects. Jurgis yesterday told us to not thank people for being here, but thank you for being here. I'm going to take you on a bit of a journey today of one that part war story, part environmental case study, and part urgent conversation about the future of food systems. Our focus is Ukraine, a country whose agricultural sector has been both a pillar of a national identity and a lifeline for a global food security, and how that sector is now being torn apart in ways that are as much about climate and ecology and as they are about missiles and tanks. And I want us I want us to keep something in mind right from the start. This isn't about just an environment in some abstract way. We're talking about the soil under people's feet, the water they drink, the air they breathe. For a farmer, environment isn't scenery, it's a toolbox you live from. And destroy the tools and you destroy the livelihood. So as we move through these slides, I'll be connecting the three big threads. So first is direct impact of war on land and ecosystems. Secondly, the compounding effect of climate change, what we called in our research double vulnerability. And thirdly, the gaps and possibilities in the humanitarian response, especially for small farmers. So, Ukraine war is, in every sense, is a multidimensional crisis. At one level, you've got the familiar war imagery, like bombed apartment blocks, people forced to move from their home, and civilians sheltering underground, mass displacements. That's a humanitarian frame most international audiences already have in mind. But, and this is where our conversation starts, there is another layer, the environmental one. In Ukraine, war has been accompanied by targeted and accidental destruction of ecosystems, industrial facilities on fire, chemical storage tanks hit by shelling, fuel deposits exploding, forests burning for days, and river system disrupted by dam failures. So agriculture, which was one of the most developed and productive sectors of the Ukrainian economy, has been right in the middle of this. Before the war, it accounted for around 22% of employment and was a major contributor for GDP. On the global stage, Ukraine was a top exporter of wheat, corn and sunflower oil. For the World Food Program alone, it supplied up to 40% purchased wheat. Now, the agricultural system is caught in what you could call a perfect storm. So it's a physical destruction of land and infrastructure, pollution of the natural resources. It depends on loss of labor through displacement and mobilization, and climate change, making the conditions of production less predictable and more extreme. So how have people been studying it? One major perspective comes from alternatives humanitarians, where researchers frame Ukraine's situation as double vulnerability. In other words, it's not just that war makes life dangerous and unstable. The war also damages ecosystems and climate resilience you would rely on to recover. So even if the fighting stops tomorrow, So even if it's fighting stops tomorrow, the land itself might not be able to support you without massive repairs or like a massive work. We take another more granular view on it, looking at what's actually happening on small farms. It shows us the perspective of a little farmer who were relying on it like his whole life, and now he really struggling to manage to live on within these conditions, and to get their land demined, to restore irrigation, and to access aid programs that too often flow toward large enterprises with more political connections. We also have some instructive comparisons. Croatia after the Yugoslav wars, Cambodia after years of conflict and landmines, both had to deal with a large-scale agricultural demining, ecosystem restoration, and getting rural economies restarted. So their experience showed us that recovery is possible, but it requires deliberate design, and it doesn't happen automatically. So for today's talk, the evidence comes from three main sources. It's thematic reports from humanitarian agencies, environmental monitors, and agriculture economists. Secondly, field interviews, like we took some interviews with farmers in Mykolaiv Oblast, Kharkiv, and Zaporizhia regions, where people describe what's happening to their land, water, and daily routines. So just to give some context, these are regions like closer to the line of conflict. And thirdly, we have comparative case studies from other post-conflict recovery efforts. So the goal is to blend numbers and narratives, because statistics gives us scale, but it's not the human stories. but it's in the human stories where you see the lived texture of a crisis. Yeah. So let's start with the most visible layer, military destruction. The fighting has flattened homes, displaced millions, and destroyed agricultural infrastructure. We're talking tractors burned where they stood, irrigation pumps twisted into scrap, storage silos with holes through the roof from artillery fire. And transport infrastructure, roads, rail lines, bridges has also been hit. This means even when you can produce food, you might not be able to move it to market. And that's not just an inconvenience. For perishable goods, it's a death sentence. Frontline and recently liberated areas face the longest road to recovery. In some cases, machinery was looted or destroyed. In others, farms are simply inaccessible because of the mines and shelling risk. So now into environmental damage. Like environmental footprint of war, and this where it gets both sovereign and global. In the first 2 years of full-scale invasion, the war generated an estimated of 175 million tons of CO2 equivalent emissions. That's comparable to the entire annual emissions of the Netherlands, and that's not just from fuel use, it's from burning infrastructure, forest fires, and the emissions locked into the reconstruction work that will follow. So the environmental damage bill is in purely monetary terms is estimated in $32 billion, but that's only a partial measure. The real cost is the things like heavy metals in the soil, contamination of rivers with toxic industrial runoff, the loss of biodiversity that help keeps ecosystems resilient. So this isn't just a cleanup problem, it's a generational challenge. Some of these pollutants don't break down quickly. Some will enter food chains, affecting health for decades. So, before the war, agriculture wasn't just a proud sector, it was strategic for Ukraine. Around 3 million people were officially employed in agriculture, with another 1.5 million working informally. Ukrainian grain fed not just its own population, but millions abroad. Now, production capacity has been gutted, seed stocks destroyed, irrigation canals and reservoirs collapsed or polluted, farm supply chains from input suppliers to processing plants are fractured. Without targeted large-scale recovery, the sector could face not just temporary shutdown, but long-term erosion of its productive base. So here is one of the most physically dangerous obstacles, landmines and unexploded ordnance. Today, roughly 1/4 of Ukrainian territory is contaminated. For context, that's like having an entire major European country unfit for safe agriculture. Demining farmlands costs around like €1,000 per hectare, far more than a small farmer can pay. Large agribusinesses can sometimes bring in their own clearance teams or pay private contractors, which means they restart operation faster. That in turn widens the gap between them and smallholders. And for those near the active front, even 8 agencies drove the line. Like we had an interview with a farmer in, I think, Kharkiv Oblast, and he told us that they saw that like assessment teams comes, take notes, and then refuse to clear it because it was too close to the fighting zone. So that's another problem small farmer can have. So about vulnerability of small farmers, this brings us to a key sociological observation. Disaster amplify existing inequalities. Small farmers already had less access to credit, smaller margins, and weaker political representation. Now they're often in high-risk zones that big players won't touch. They face higher operational risks and lower access to recovery programs. Meanwhile, large enterprises, often headquartered far from the fighting, can secure funding, mobilize equipment, and market their products way more easily. The danger is that this war could accelerate long-term consolidation of land in fewer hands, reshaping rural life in ways that will be hard to reverse. So, one of the points is the water infrastructure destruction. Maybe some of you can heard about Kakhovka Dam destruction. So water deserves its own spotlight. When the Kakhovka Dam collapsed, it didn't just cause flooding; it erased a massive irrigation network in southern Ukraine, and people had to figure out how to build their own irrigation system during a war with almost no funding and with like when on everyday basis it could be destroyed again. So productive farmland went dry. Other areas became waterlogged and unusable. Entire local ecosystems, including fish populations, collapsed. This is a classic example of how a single piece of infrastructure, when destroyed, can set off cascading effect across environment, economy, and society. And as of now, there is no comprehensive state-led program to restore that irrigation capacity. So when talking about global consequences, the war's agricultural disruption has rippled outward. Pre-war Ukraine was a cornerstone of global grain exports. Losing that supply or even making it unpredictable has driven prices up. In the early months of the war, the FAO food price index rose sharply, contributing to food insecurity in dozens of countries. And when you think about it in a way, a damaged reservoir in southern Ukraine can raise the price of bread in Cairo or Mogadishu, that's a globalized food system in action, fragile and interconnected, and vulnerable to shock in any one of its nodes. And conflict doesn't just wreck infrastructure, it tears apart social networks. Many rural areas have lost their working age population. Schools and clinics are gone or only partially functioning. Even local markets, places where farmers sell produce and buy supplies, are often shuttered. Farmers' cooperatives have become crucial for survival. They share machinery, coordinate planting and harvest, and sometimes act as informal welfare providers, but without formal support, their capacity is limited. Sorry. Yeah, and not to mention like this mobilization that happens in Ukraine, but it's whole another story. But that's one of the big reasons why it kind of shattered like markets in small villages. So what do we do with all this? The main conclusion is that you can't separate the humanitarian from environmental and from the economics. Rebuilding a road without considering flood risk is wasted effort. Clearing land without soil testing could lead to contamination in food. Restoring irrigation without accounting for climate change could mean investing in systems that would be viable in 20 years. And integrated recovery is essential, one that treats land restoration, infrastructure, and social systems as interconnected. Here you can see on the picture how it looks from the like satellite or like from a bird perspective. So future work needs to design recovery programs that link demining with immediate agricultural use, infrastructure repair with environmental rehabilitation, farmer support with climate adaptation. That requires strong partnerships between Ukrainian institutions, international donors, local communities, and the private sector. And it also needs long-term environmental monitoring so we can adapt as conditions change. I think I a bit rushed the whole presentation because I'm sorry I haven't mentioned it yet, but it's my first time doing an open speech. So as you may notice, I am almost just reading my presentation, but I hope it's okay. So to close, I want to return to that idea of double vulnerability. It's not just violence, you can see the explosions, the ruins, it's a quieter violence to the soil, to the water, the ecosystems. And for small farmers, that means the very foundations of their survival are under attack twice over. The resilience we've seen in Ukrainian farmers, from those standing tiny safe plots to those farming cooperatives in danger zones is remarkable. But resilience isn't an infinite resource. It had to be supported materially and politically. And if we fail to support them, we don't just lose farms, we lose the possibility of rural recovery, we lose a vital piece of the global food puzzle, and we deepen the social scars of the war. Yeah, so.
I promised and yet I forgot. So many things to run. Ihor, thank you so much for doing that, although for the first time, such an amazing job. And so we have quite a lot of time for discussion. But before we do, I wanted to, I have a privilege of having microphones, so I will kindly take that from all of you and ask a couple of questions. So Ihor, I'm just wondering, because you were mentioning that there's a lot of interviews been going on, right? Could you tell us a bit more about how are they, because that's so intriguing. You're speaking about double vulnerability, right? People are exposed to different threats at the same time, especially in farming context. So could you tell us a bit more about the interviews? How did it go? And maybe something, the most exciting part that, or exciting is not the right word, but perhaps something that is the most relevant, you think, for our discussions here today from your experience with these interviews?
From my perspective, it was really hard to even get people to talk because, what are you doing? Why are you asking me these questions? Why are you that interested? Are you some kind of, spies or special agents from Ukrainian side or Russian side or whatever else side? And no one's really want to talk, so we had pretty hard time looking for people who small farmers who wants to talk. And we got, what I noticed, we got refused a lot. And people who talked to us, it wasn't that exciting at all. They just share more of the irrigation problems that it just all and how expensive is demining the territory, and basically people have pretty much similar problems. I haven't quoted here really a lot because I just it wasn't the mind perspective of this presentation, but we I just can wrap it up together. But we didn't had a lot of interviews. We have, I think we managed to do not more than 20 interviews with so.
That's a lot of interviews. That's a lot of interviews. Wow. Oops. Okay. And that kind of teaches us, because what you're saying, I feel like it's nice to remember how material things are, right? And that although no matter how ideological things get, some things are staying material. And so you highlighting that throughout the presentation really made sense to me. So now let's open the floor for the questions. We have quite some time. So could you raise your hands if you have something to share? If there is something that you think wasn't just unfolded as you wish it was? Anything that's in there, let's share and speak and ask. One hand there, perfect. Let's go there.
Thank you for your presentation. Maybe I missed the very beginning. Maybe you told about it. Just two questions, and mostly about ecology and water. We obviously know what happened to Nova Kakhovka Dam, and from what I understand within the scientific community, there is a very phony discussion of what to do next, because it's related to water and the very fact that southern Ukraine, in terms of agriculture, is completely man-made phenomenon. It was a step. It was literally colonized by people by bringing water into places where, well, there was very little water. So within the public discourse, is there any attempts to conceptualize what Ukraine should do about the lack of Kakhovka Dam, which raised the water and allowed the Crimean Canal to work? And are there any discussions on sort of large-scale projects of bringing water back to the places where it now is desertifying in our eyes?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And I think mostly, like right now in Ukraine, and like people like activists and all like people from the government, I can't see any like long-term plans in this case, because they are all like targeted on a war and how they for example, I heard one of the politicians said, like, what can we do now? It could be destroyed again and again. So we can do something like really resilient and like indefinite. And yeah, we just, with this presentation, we just underlining this problem and we trying to figure out what to do next. And yeah, that's basically my question too.
Right. There is one more question there. Okay, perfect. I see hands. Lovely. I love you going like that.
Hi. So I was just wondering, since you said that a lot of people in Ukraine are employed in agriculture, before the war, how many of them were like owned their own land, and how many were employed by like a big agriculture? Just to know, like, how many, when you talk small farmers, how many of them is it actually?
Mm-hmm. Actually, I don't have any numbers with me right now, but and I didn't want to. If to define like small farmer when he just sustains himself, there is a lot of people like that, but they not like included in this like. In a market of wheat, in a market of corn and like these products. So like we have some big agriculture holdings in Ukraine and some smaller, but I don't have any numbers on me. But yeah, but this, but most vulnerable to this were like. Small farmers who are actually trying to sell their product, who are raising it and doing this for a living, not just a person, Yeah, I don't have any numbers on me, so I can't really respond to that.
Thank you. There is one more question here? No, here.
Hi. To your knowledge about the workforce shortage, what are the strategies that are being investigated? Is it more like more mechanization? Is it to recruit foreign workforce? Or is it to change kinds of crops? What are the options to face the workforce shortage?
Probably use more mechanism or like more like mechanical advice, because I don't think anyone want to come to Ukraine as a like immigrant, and we can't get any workforce from Ukraine. We got only like less and less workforce in Ukraine, because a lot of Ukrainians, especially from villages and rural regions, are being drafted. So yeah, it's probably our only option is mechanized options, but yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you for the presentation. It's I think it's very important to hear about those things, but I would like to hear a little bit more about your interviews, because research, militant research, has a long history in organizing, and also Ukrainian peasants have a long history of rebelling. So I know it's hard to think like in long term, in times of war, because war changes everything. But still, judging from those interviews and those data you gathered, do you think there is any organizing potential in those farmers? And have you found some, I don't know, already existing structures with maybe some leaders who could pull the thing forward?
From my perspective, and from interview we took, like people are very concerned about themselves and organizing only when it's really necessary, for example, to share tractors or something, or share like irrigation system between themselves. And usually people like I contacted, they only focused on themselves, what they can do for themselves, not to like organizing something. It just a very little of, I don't know, motivation for building something new, but trying to protect what people already like, not already like still has. So I think if I do understand you correctly, yeah. So yeah.
Thanks. And there were a couple more hands in here. Could you please rate them again? There is one there. There is one there. Perfect. We certainly have time for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I have a question about demining, and if you have any thoughts and kind of about what kind of lessons can, for example, Finland and Lithuania and Poland learn, because now they left the Ottawa Convention. And what are your thoughts? What can people here learn from the lessons from Ukraine and demining problems?
Sorry, I just lost for a minute. So in Ukraine, there is a lot of like new initiatives and new like startups where they trying to build like new drones who are sustainable for a demining, who can like blow and still working after that and keep demining. I see a lot of projects where people trying to automatize this process, and I think one of the picture there was like this tractor with a huge like metal things in the front, like this for demining too. And I think it would be like more common thing in the future, like this small demining machines, like more, yeah. But yeah, they're.
Right, and then what we would be wondering with Dari about would be the part about, so Lithuania and Poland, and Lithuania and Finland left the Ottawa Convention, meaning that both of the countries now can mine their lands to protect from the coming enemy, right? And so would you, from the Ukrainian perspective, share what kind of, I don't want to ask feelings, but like what kind of thoughts that bring in you? Right, so Finland and Finland and Lithuania are now ready to mine the land on the borders, right? And so, what could that bring us? Where could it bring us? And what's your take on that?
From my perspective and from presentation perspective, like I've been focusing on demining, like not mining. And in my thoughts, I don't know, mining is kind of not the option. Or not the reasonable option for me. I just don't know. Maybe that's just my perception.
Oh, fair. Thank you. Okay, we had one more hand there. Here, yeah.
Yes, hello. I wanted to ask about because you talked about farming. My question will not be about climate change, maybe directly. Maybe I don't understand it fully. Just okay. My question is, this maybe you know more facts because I don't. Because I heard that okay, in Ukraine they're fighting, but on the Ukrainian land, but that land is being sold somehow to corporate West, and it's already they're fighting not on their land in a way. Is my facts correct? And can you expand on this like situation? How that impacts people's livelihoods?
Yeah, sorry. Have we
Like a BlackRock buying land from Ukraine using this situation or other corporations, or is this fact wrong?
I don't actually know. I know that a lot of Ukrainian big agro holders are trying to buy more land from the farmers who are not able, from smaller farmers who are not able to sustain on this land. And I only know about this agreement with US for resources, but is that the?
No.
I think I just not that.
The part of the thing that the Ukrainian big agro holdings from Ukraine are sometimes part of the investment portfolio, like part of the investment packages of the bigger Western organizations, such as BlackRock and others, right? So they could be interrelated in a way, but smaller farmers indeed are being like selling their land to the bigger organizations. Okay then, so we do have quite a few minutes, so let me look at you and see if there is any more questions in there. Well then, I will allow myself another one, because I think I kind of going around here, hearing what people are whispering to each other, and for some reason not asking, I will ask that then, because the take is, we've been speaking today about the rural-urban divide, right? We've been speaking about people with different experiences. Someone has never foraged before, and someone has been doing their whole life, and also farming was their only access to any kind of like better quality of life, right? So especially now in so many different interconnected vulnerabilities, not just the land and environmental catastrophe, but also the war and the things interconnected. How do you see urban and rural divide taking place in Ukraine, if it's at all, or perhaps that's just some kind of a Western idea that is not applicable here? Just please share if you see it relevant.
From my perspective, I feel like rural and urban, like it's they are like becoming like more different from each other, like since the war started. Especially because, like I think I mentioned earlier, the drafting goes. It more goes to the rural territories, and people from rural like territories understand that and blame urban, like people who lives in urban territories and what so on. And in a city, it's different, and like people from, for example, Kiev, Lviv, from the big cities, they are more often like under missile attacks or drone attacks. So that's a different division between Ukrainians. We have also, if talking about divisions, we have divisions also with West and East. And a lot of people like from the East blames people from the West because they are just live in more safer conditions. And if someone from the East, you probably speak more Russian than Ukrainian. And people from the West are blaming people from the East for speaking Russian and not Ukrainian and what's not. But yeah, I feel like division between rural and urban is like growing during the war.
Thank you. So that is the right time to wrap up then. Thank you all so much. Let's give not the applause, but the gentle, we're respectful of dogs, right? That sounded very loud right now, crazy. Anyway, thank you so much, Igor.